Welcome to ZOOMERTIMES TV. And here's your host, Anita Finley.
Well, hello, everybody. This is a little different. We now have two authors that we're talking to. They are married, and we're getting them directly from Hawaii. Yes. So this is special for us. I'm going to first talk about the book that we featured, though, as a publisher's choice in our June issue, and that's In My Next Life, I'll Get It Right with Rosemary Mild. I'm just going to show you the book, and I'm sure you've read the review. And then the charming gentleman that you see is Rosemary's husband, and that's Larry, and he is a big author also. So, right, there you are. So what we're going to do is first talk to Rosemary about her book, since we featured this, and then we're going to talk about all the other books that these two star authors write. What a perfect situation to be in Hawaii, in the same place as one another, writing your books. And I just love this idea. It's been very special for me. I've talked so much about it with a lot of people. Okay, so Rosemary, let's get started with your wonderful book. I just complimented her on the caricature of Rosemary. I mean, that really made the book. In My Next Life, I'll Get It Right. So is there going to be another life?
I don't know, but probably because I knew when Larry and I had our met on our blind date, we were so comfortable that I'm sure I met him in a previous life. So I'm assuming there's going to be another one.
Okay, I got that. Who knows? The UFOs may be bringing someone. You never know, right? So let's talk about your book. When you decided to write this, because you've been writing other books too, what made you decide on this particular one? And let's just have you. It's a medley. I see that in chapter 5, a medley. It is a medley of a lot of ideas and thoughts, and you've been a very prolific writer with a lot of things. You've lived quite a life.
I was an engineering writer at Westinghouse and Larry director, and I said, what is it called when you retire after 6.5 years? And he said, it's called quitting. So when we did quit, I did quit, and we went to Hawaii, and I suddenly realized after a full career as an editor and writer starting at Harper's Magazine, I had no identity left. I felt very isolated. So I decided to start writing personal essays. I wrote a bunch of articles for the Baltimore Sun, and then I decided I needed to find my own voice. And that's when I started writing all these essays, some of which have gotten awards. And that's how it started.
Okay, so I would like you to read something. I always like an author to read something from their books, because what they say in the words and reading it is very different. Do you have, and I mean, I could always pick something, but what, do you have your book there in front of you?
Yeah.
Okay. What would you like to read? Just, a couple of paragraphs. What did you think? You had this one wonderful hat. That was great. You had a lot of interesting things. And which was one of your favorites? And I'm going to, maybe Larry ought to say what was his favorite. I don't know.
Well, it's like asking which of your children do you like best?
Well, that's right.
They're all our creations.
And if you ask the children, they'll say, she loves me the best. Isn't that funny that you should bring that up?
Well, I have this little thing about being in the supermarket, and
what page is that?
In the produce, this was on page 7. In the produce department, I turned the corner from the Bosque pears and accidentally bumped the edge of another cart, being pushed by a smartly dressed Howley woman. My fault, I said. No, my fault, she responded. We parted down different aisles. Later, I pondered our little cart-bumping exchange. I'm an avid fan of Carol Burnett's incorrigible skits, so my thoughts ran to how she and her sister Vicky would have played our responses out. My fault, no, my fault. My fault, no, my fault. The responses are getting testy. Come to think of it, said Vicky, it was your fault. What? Are you crazy? It was yours. Hair pulling follows.
Oh, you see, when you read it, it's so perfect. But I have to tell everybody that you're listening to someone that's not only a very, very good writer, but she has a great personality. If you read the book, you'll see that. Just to take one little incident like that and make it into something so funny and so good. And so if you buy, and you can buy the book, of course, I told you in my next life, I'll get it right. You can buy it on Amazon.com, and you won't be sorry. I mean, and it's kind of book you can put down. You can read a few pages, put it down, because they're all little segments, I mean, and the titles of your little things are great. You go into different chapters, but you, the titles seem like you're very good at that. You know that titles are important, don't you?
Yeah, yes, yes. Larry has taught me a lot about writing good titles. He's made the titles of all of our books, our joint books.
Oh, and even your own book, he helped you with the titles.
Well, no, actually, that happened about maybe 10 years ago. I was in an elevator with a couple of women I didn't even know, total strangers. And for some reason, I said that I had made a goof earlier in the morning. And then I said, maybe in my next life, I'll get it right. Well, they laughed so hard. And I thought, there's my title.
Yes. Oh, now, isn't that funny? That's true. I've heard that people say that. Okay, but then as we get into your book, you do some that are strictly writing, and then you do some that are conversations. And so, when you're planning this book, when you plan this book, and we'll be talking to Larry in the next probably 5 minutes or so, but I want to finish with this book because I want people to buy this book. It's just so delightful. Do you plan it out with yellow stickies and say, I'm going to put this, and how do you know what location you're going to put this in your various chapters?
I just start with scribbles of the subject. And then I have it in my head where I'm going, like my essay auditioning for Jeopardy, to take the test on Jeopardy. I had it in advance and I had the setting in my head. And I think about these things all the time. Even sometimes I wake up in the morning and I've had the idea during the night. And sometimes I come home from having some disastrous event and I immediately type out a little something to remember the awful thing that just happened, like the driving disaster where I turned left onto Baratania Street, a 5-lane highway, in the wrong direction.
And thank goodness you're here.
Yes, really.
Okay, so I was going to ask you that next. So I know from reading this, there are some things that were funny, but then there were some things that were pretty serious.
Yes.
And that's a hard thing to do, I think, as an author, to take light of heart and then put some that are really serious, because people are in the mood for one thing and now they get this other thing. But maybe that's the fun of your book.
Well, I have 104 different takes on life in this book, but I ended with talking about Miriam Wolf, my only child, whom I lost on Pan Am Flight 103. She was over Lockerbie, Scotland, and she was one of the 35 Syracuse students on board. And here's a picture.
Yeah, that was put that up closer. Yeah, we have that in the book. I know. I that really saddened me terribly, and You wrote a beautiful, that was really beautiful. And that actually, I think it was your the last chapter.
It's my
I think
last chapter.
yeah, it was. When I started reading it, I said, oh, this is real. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, you just horrible. And were you married to Larry at this time?
We had only been married for 13 months. And I was very lucky. I had a new family. I had been divorced for 8 years. There is a little something that I would like to read that of
Please.
Miriam's.
Yes, will you please?
It takes you away from the grief and makes you realize what an optimistic and profound person she was. I found this little paragraph in one of her London notebooks that was returned to me by the Scottish police. And here's what it is. There are times when the poor me mood is upon us. We're overwhelmed by all the troubles we have to face. This is especially likely to happen when we have begun to try to change our thinking about ourselves and our relation to others. We may at first become too analytical and try to solve too much at once. For this frame of mind, there is an almost infallible prescription to empty our minds of all thoughts but one, today, and how to use it. This day is mine. It is unique. Nobody in the world has one exactly like it. It holds the sum of all my past experience and all my future potential.
I know, I have it in the book. As a matter of fact, I see it, and it was very, very, very important. I kept reading it over and over again. There were so many people I know who just lost their life recently in accidents, and I read that, and the fact that this was found and sent to you was just the miracle of all miracles.
That's right. That's right.
And then there's such beautiful pictures of her daughter and in here and all. I mean, well, you know, you're quite a woman, and you have now a great man, and I'd like to do a little bit of this now with him. Larry, I know that this is, I guess, a second marriage for you. And you've been married for how long?
33 years.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Larry, you're up now at the bat, and isn't it? You write so many things. Where do you get all your stories and ideas from?
I don't know. I walk around. Oops. Turn your volume down. Turn your volume down.
Go ahead.
Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, I walk around with it in my head. Thoughts come to me, and by the time I sit down, I'm ready to write a story. I play with the characters, I play with the wording, and I sit down and I type away. The first thing I type is not always the best outcome. So I might have 3-4 sentences to represent what I wanted to say. I'll decide on that later, and I'll come back to it and knock out the superfluous ones. But
and you like mysteries, I gather, too.
Basically, I'm an ex-engineer, electrical engineer, electronics. I used to design instruments. So I was always solving problems. The problem that happened at the end of the day, you carry home with you, you go to sleep with it, you wake up with it, and you go back to work with the solution. So it's the creative part of it.
Were you a writer, Larry? Were you a writer?
I'd like to interject something here.
Okay.
That Larry comes from a long line of creative people. His grandfather was a painter, and his 2 daughters, my stepdaughters, are both professional artists.
Okay. So so of course that's all creativity. So Larry, would you ever have imagined that you would have a wife that both of you can sit there totally engrossed with writing books and being in love, being in Hawaii? I mean, this is like, people would look at this and say, oh, how do I get that?
The funny thing about this is the day we met on our first date, and Rosemary tells this wonderful story. I think she should tell it now.
In the car, Larry, you have to turn yours down. In the car on the way home, Larry said to me, when I retire, turn down your sound.
So
In the car on the way home,
turn yours down.
he said to me, when I retire, I'm going to write a novel and I want you to help me. Now, I'd only known him for 4 hours. Neither of us had ever written fiction. And I said, okay. Because when our date was for 6 o'clock, at 5:45, I was ready. I look out the window. He's already there in his car reading the paper, and he didn't come to the door early because he was afraid I might not be ready. I thought, this man is so considerate. He's a keeper. So I said I'd help him with the novel because I wasn't going to let him get away.
No, of course not. Oh, that's lovely. So I want everyone to see in Boomer Times, in our June issue, we featured their 6 books. They have a lot more, but they chose 6 books, and there's a little bit of a summary of each one of the books. So be sure to open your magazine, and that is on page 7. It says A Fanfare Perfect Books for Summer Reading by Rosemary and Larry Mild. They have a lot more, and you can get on their website and you'll be able to see more, but it is really a pleasure to deal with 2 people who are so talented, so professional, and you can see so nice. It's rare for us. We've never really done a page like this. And actually, we're thinking now of offering other authors this opportunity to do this because we thought it came out very nice, thanks to you all. And I love the fact that you are both on being interviewed together now. We don't do that too often with authors. And so it's been a treat for us. So tell us, how do you, who prints these books? You have someone in Hawaii?
No, we use Lightning Source, which is who are in Nashville, Tennessee. They are owned by Ingram, the largest distributor of English language books in the country. Mm-hmm. And Larry formats our books and they do all the printing.
Okay, and so Larry, something that Rosemary said, you're very good at titles. I want to hear about that. What makes you so good? How do you think that you can get these great titles?
I have a little bit of a talent in being able to take a situation and boil it down, and you wind up with just the essentials and the most typifying representation of that situation. And I've applied it to all our books. I do the covers, the most recent covers anyway. Rosemary's In My Next Life, I did. And I did the one for
Death
Rules the Night. And we've done this mystery series, the Dan and Rivka Sherman mysteries. And there are 4 in the series now. And in doing so, we kind of had our other selves as characters in Dan and Rivka. Dan is an engineer turned writer, and Rivka is a editor of a small newspaper, and so they both give up their careers to become booksellers, and they open up the old Victorian bookstore, and all the mysteries emanate from there. The first one was Death Goes Postal, and the part of the book goes back to Gutenberg's time, and You know, the first character in many books is a drop character, and sometimes illuminated very much. While in the old days, it was monks that actually painted in these drop characters, and the printing artifact that's stolen in the story has to do with the invention of the print type font that had carried the illumination, and
So let me ask you
traces,
then.
it traces
sorry.
this artifact down through history.
I see. Well, let me ask you something, because I don't have your other books. About how many pages are in those other books generally?
Most of them run just short of 350, something like that.
Okay. Because, that's always a problem for authors. They put too many words in, too many pages, and the editors keep saying, you got to take this out. You got to take this out. I can't take that out. That's too important. But this might be a problem. So Rosemary, let me ask you, when you wrote your book, of course, and I'm just trying to see how many pages were there. That's 200. Oh, it's only 209, 10, 12 in this book.
Yeah. Everybody turn down your sound. Is the minute it was published, I realized, oh, I could have put in
popular because you tempted and teased people with this one. And so it's I think sometimes it discourages people when it's too large. How am I going to get through that, and blah blah blah. But this was the right, see, it was perfect, because I think what made this so good is I liked how almost every other page is a new little chapter, a new little title. And that's,
Thank
what's
you.
next? What's next? Oh, it's great. Well, what's next? And I just loved it. You did such a good job, and you must have a very large library there in one of your. I guess you share offices. You each have your own office.
No, actually, our second bedroom of our condo on the 15th floor is our office. We write back to back on our dueling computers. We're just a few feet from each other. In fact, the funny thing is, the Baltimore Sun did an interview with me, and she said, how can you stand being in the same room? And she said, I'd go back if I have to do with that with my husband. But we get along, and we get to interrupt each other when we have a problem. Like, how do you?
I think that's lovely. No, I think that's lovely, because you're together. I mean, that's what it's all about. And I hope that other people who are listening to this, if you have any writing ability, and you or your husband or whomever you're with, you should really pursue this. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, Rosemary, of course, has spent her whole life at this. She's been a writer, an editor, and all. But of course, Larry has been an engineer. He's been something else, and look what he's turned this into, a writing thing. And you're going to be able to go on for years. You're going to be in your 90s, and you're going to be writing. It won't matter. See, that's the nice thing about being an author. You don't have to fill out how old you are, to get hired. You just write, and then it's really the words that count, right?
Yes, it is. One of my Smith College classmates wrote to me that she liked my book because she's a very busy person and doesn't have time to read long novels. So she said, you don't have to remember what the thread of the plot is.
That's true. No, that's a very good point. But I think in the books that Larry, you see, I'm just going to look at this a minute. So a lot of the very books, you have really both your names on all these other books. Larry, have you actually written any by yourself, or it's always with Rosemary?
Yes, I wrote my memoir and that is 460 pages.
Ha! It's a
We did a
memoir.
lot of traveling over the years. We've been to all kinds of countries in Asia, and Europe, and of course the US and Canada. And we had a lot to write about. I was
Sounds
a
like
field
it.
engineer for a while, rode Navy ships, and
Huh.
highlined across from ship to ship. And helicopter lifted off of the gun tub. All kinds of crazy episodes.
And are you going to be
We
writing
wrote
about UFOs
exciting
now?
writings.
How about the UFOs? Is that in your mind now? That's a whole new story. UFOs, and I can see so many movies coming out on this now.
Well, the government is kind of letting a little bit loose. Uh, they've been hiding it for so many years.
Right.
We
It's
have
going to
no
be
idea
interesting.
what these things are.
Exactly. We now we've been told that we're running out of time. So I want to thank you both. We'll have you on again, but this is a very good beginning. And we'll have you, I'm so glad you brought up about Miriam. I didn't know if I wanted to do that with you or not. I'm glad you did that. And I love that, what you found, that beautiful thing. That's the page that, if nothing else, you want to buy the book for this page. I mean, it's so beautiful. So remember, it's In My Next Life, I'll Get It Right by Rosemary Mild, and her husband, Larry Mild, writes books with her. They're calling in from Hawaii, and we appreciate both of you so much. Thank you for doing this.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for
much.
having us.
We appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.